Hey, it's GT from Death Wears Bunny Slippers. How to find and buy your own missile silo. Well, a lot of it is you have to choose which one you want first. Realistically, what's available out there, depending on your budget, is something called an Atlas E, Atlas F, Titan 1, Titan 2. Now, there are other sites. If I didn't list your missile silo, I'm sorry. There are Nikes and a bunch of others, but let's be real, those aren't nearly as cool. What is awesome is, let's just go down the list. The Titan 1. Titan 1, there's only 18 of those ever made. Some of them have been destroyed, but they are massive. 3 underground silos, huge power rooms. The downside is these cost about $1.5 million last time I checked, and they are so large, you're talking about millions of dollars in investments. So that is, again, if you have the budget for that, hey, go do that, have someone do it for you. That leaves you choices of Atlas E's, F's, and Titan 2s that are readily available and somewhat affordable. The price range in all of these is about the same, somewhere between $150,000 and maybe $250,000. There are some that are definitely more expensive, but in that price range, you can usually get yourself a nice missile silo, nice being a relative term. So here's what you have to choose from. Atlas E's, horizontal silo, lots of square footage, but it's not very hardened. Hardened means, what kind of a blast can it take? A lot of the Atlas E's really were almost on the ground and then buried, as opposed to being dug and then hardened underneath the ground. Atlas E's are fine. It's not my favorite, but they are a great silo. Any missile silo is awesome. Atlas F's have the best missile silo. And when we mean silo, we mean where the missile was housed. Of all of them, Atlas F's are the best there. The downside is to build out a silo, and what we mean by silo is not the launch control center. The silo itself is about 180 feet deep, 60 feet-ish in diameter, and you can build them out to be wonderful. It's basically a skyscraper underground, which is great, but it is expensive. The downside of the Atlas F's, if you don't have the budget to build out the missile silo itself, is the launch control center is small. It has a huge piece of concrete in the middle for stability. It's quite a bit smaller than your average launch control center. So making that into a living quarters, while it has been done, and there's some beautiful work that's been done, it really is smaller compared to some other choices out there. That leaves you with the Titan 2. The Titan 2 is, of course, my favorite. That's what we have. Everybody loves their own choices. But the Titan 2 has some definite advantages. The upside is the launch control center is large. It's about 1,000 square feet per floor, and there's 3 floors. So you have 3,000 square feet just in your launch control center. Those are all hung on springs. So those springs, basically the floors hang from these springs. If there's an earthquake or if there's nuclear war, it'll actually shake inside of a shell. So that's pretty neat. They are the most hardened site you can buy that a civilian can buy, at least in missile silos. The front doors, which you can actually see right over here, the front door can handle what's called 1,000 PSI. 5 to 7 PSI tornado will blow down a normal house. So to give you an idea of how much 1,000 PSI is, that's a massive, massive number. So they are very, very hardened. The downside of Titan 2s, and this is a big downside for a lot of people, is that they were destroyed in the 80s. Atlas E's, Titan 1's, Atlas F's were all taken out in the 50s and 60s. We had no treaties with Russia at the time, but in the 80s we did. So when the Titan 2s were dismantled, they had to be destroyed to the point where they weren't used again as a missile silo. That way it wouldn't count in the treaty. So that's definitely a downside. What they did is they blew the top of the missile silo off, so that's about the top 20-25 feet, right above the tunnel was blown off. They blew the top 10 to 15 feet of the access portal off, and then they filled the access portal full of debris and then covered it up. Now, in all of them that I know that have been opened, none of them got concreted in. There was this rumor that, they poured concrete in to fill them up. That was not done. We have basically confirmed in every site, which is Arizona, Arkansas, and Kansas, that was never done. The front door was usually closed, and then they were all buried. One of the downsides of almost any missile silo is that it's underground. Depending on which videos you've watched so far, you know that ours had water in it. A lot of missile silos have water in them. The upside of Titan 2 Arizona sites is they don't. I've heard rumor that the Kansas sites don't have water in them. I think some of them would, but I do know for a fact that at least the Arkansas sites that I know that are open most definitely have water in them. The water table is so high in a lot of areas that the water actually comes over the top of the broken silo that they blew up, and water comes in through the tunnel, and you now have an underground shipwreck, which is always fun. When it comes time to find a missile silo, that's probably the easiest thing you can do. There are coordinates for every missile silo out there, at least inactive ones, and you can just look for it. In fact, there's entire maps dedicated to it, so that's not hard. You typically will find your missile silos in the central United States, maybe Arizona, north, and then east from there, maybe to Arkansas, Kansas, area. Evidently, people care less about those states, so they made them bigger targets. I guess that makes sense, lower population. Anyway, that's probably where you would normally find your missile silos. Once you find one and you want to buy it, you have to find the owner. We know a lot of people that have gone just to the courthouse. In fact, I've had people contact me. They go look up my site. They find out who owns the property at the courthouse. Then they call me and say, hey, do you want to sell? Sure, the answer, I always do want to sell. If anybody can come up with, I don't know, $1.5 million right now, it's all yours, baby. And you know what? It's worth it. So that's one way. Once you do that, part of the problem with owning and buying a missile silo is it's basically impossible to finance it. Now, I know it can be done. I've done it, but not because I have a bunch of money or something. It's because I'm quite persistent and resourceful. The key to financing a missile silo, the first thing you have to do is have an appraisal. You know, this is not like, hey, I want to have my house appraised or my basement appraised. I actually found a guy who appraises very unique properties, caves, weird houses, and they came out and they did an appraisal. And, we got a number back and the bank said, we're not going to give you that much money, but we'll give you a bunch. And then I don't know what I spent it on actually, but, we're filming video in here now, so at least it's not full of water. That's an upside. So that's how you find, buy, get your own missile silo. I know for many of you out there, that's not super applicable because your significant other would leave you if you wanted to go buy a missile silo. But it is possible, it is out there. You can do it. It's kind of fun. Although it's not the most practical information to know how to go buy a missile silo, there it is. That's the process that we went through. And we bought it and dug it up. So take a look at other videos that we have. If this is the first one that you happen upon, you may want to know why we bought one. You may also want to know what happens after this. How do you open a Titan II missile silo? And that is most definitely the next video you're going to see. Thanks a lot for visiting. If you don't mind subscribing, that's always awesome and much appreciated. You can find that down here. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.